name is Ashley Chen, and my pronouns are she, hers. That's complicated. I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, and then I grew up in Hawaii, and then now I'm in New York. I was very fortunate that when I moved to Hawaii specifically because my dad is an astronomer, and so he built telescopes. I guess he still builds telescopes now. And so my introduction to technology was through his work. And so it wasn't through like just directly using a computer, but it was trying to see how you can take pictures of stars that are like light years away. So that was how I was introduced to technology. It was really fun because there wasn't any sort of like anything that was off the limits when it comes to just asking questions. And I think like even now I'm still questioning things that I've never thought of. So things like how do like our groceries get to where we are? Like there has to be technology that somehow, brings wherever like our produce are coming from, like from farms even around the world, to like my local Trader Joe's or Key Foods. And so I think I constantly asked questions and was also fortunate enough to have like someone who was willing to be patient with me and ask and answer them. And so now it's just mostly asking Google and figuring out how to find these answers on my own. In some ways, I think it was always, maybe it's kind of like the immigrant like style where you think like someone tells you that you aren't supposed to fit into like a software engineering role, or there are a lot of like really cool things that you can do in the US. And so I kind of thought of that as a challenge, and I think I knew that I wanted to go something into like science because of just like my parents, but I think the more I realized how technology has just kind of become part of like every aspect of my life, I've just decided that, this is actually just like part of my identity. I should learn how to like turn into something that's my own. I was actually really early on, like when I was like 7 or 8, I wanted to make a website that like told jokes. And I didn't do the actual coding, and it wasn't until I went to college when I started to do actual coding. But also the fact of like, I played a lot of like video games online, and there was also like Neopets, which was like a very specific like Tamagotchi sort of game where you can, start working with HTML and CSS just to, make things colorful, have a bunch of animations. It was all, early on, it was all just for kind of like, it was as if I was like decorating like my locker or like my tablet at school. And then when I got to college, I realized that like everything pretty much involves some form of code. And so that's when I started to take it more seriously, as to like what you can do with it, and then how to actually, change different aspects of whether it's like someone's life or like someone's business. Just learning how to code. Yeah, I mean, like along with programming, I did robotics for a really long time, and I like throughout middle school and high school as well, I also mentored like kids who were younger than me on how to build robots and kind of do very, very basic coding. And I think that was when I learned about how like not everyone is as privileged or has like these resources at their school. And I think now after going to college, I realized that like kids and adults all like learn pretty much the same way. It's really much as like, what is their motivation? For some kids, it was like, they really wanted to make like something that was just like that would go back and forth, or they wanted something that they've seen like in the movies. And so for some people it's like they are motivated by either curiosity or trying to find like a better life for themselves. And I think once you're able to understand what like motivates someone, and I think just like listening is what kind of helped me understand like maybe someone just really needs there to listen to them, and also just kind of, you know, assure them of different assumptions they have, that like they don't have to be like they don't have to have like a formal educational background. They don't have to have like grown up in some like specific way. It's just knowledge. It's not like discriminatory. You just need someone to assure that, you know, anyone can do it. Yeah, I think so. I'm not too sure. I think I just probably, actually I don't know why I really did that. I think I just like also wanted to meet people, and I think maybe when I was younger, so I grew up like specifically just on one island. It was very like, maybe I would go off an island like once a year or so, and so you grow up with like the same people. And so I think mentoring was also a way to like meet other people and kind of learn what sorts of like different things like people grew up with. And it's very interesting because in like where the part of Hawaii that I grew up in, there are people who just like live off the grid, or like there are people who go to schools where they just speak like Hawaiian. And so there are like many different like ways that they have abundant resources on how to like build their own solar panel system, but they don't know how to like really, you know, hook up or like use the internet. And so there's like a bunch of those things that you learn, and maybe just from being exposed to that at a young age, I was like, oh, I want to continue doing this, especially like just like being in a new place. Like it's a great way to just meet and understand people instead of like watching it on social media. I guess I was lucky enough to, well, maybe, I don't know if it was lucky, but I grew up going on the internet, and I think even just as, I think at a young age, it was just unconsciously like known that like there are a lot of like fake news on the internet, and also your perception of people are very like skewed once, you know, once like Facebook and Instagram became like really popular. I think between like high school and college, I became more aware of I guess like more social issues, like even if it's just like the uprising, I think in Egypt back in like 2011 was like kind of the first like social issue that actually fully utilized like something like Twitter to do something that was, you know, bigger than just making memes on the internet. And I think sometime around there, that's when I realized like there's a lot of different use cases, and not just like, you know, putting knowledge, say, you know, writing blogs or like going onto Wikipedia. There's actually more things that you can do with it, which is like, you know, gather people into some form of like, I guess, trying to like form some kind of positive social impact. And I guess we've been seeing it play out for like the past decade. I heard about it when I was in college, when Chen went to like one of the clubs at my school to talk about it. And I thought that was really cool because I think by then I had done like a couple years of just like mentoring kids on the side, and I never was like exposed to or like had the opportunity to actually just like be able to mentor adults. And I think like part of like the incarceration system was not really something that was something that I'd known about, just because like in Hawaii, when you grow up, you don't really think about things that happen outside of like the island life. And so I think also coming to like the East Coast, like to New York, it was like also a big culture shock to see just like how like serious and how long like of a history like race has played into like everything. And so that's where I kind of learned about Emergent Works. And then I think it just kept coming up. I'll also like Elena, who was like a mentor before, I knew her from just like another like coding event that we did. And so when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is just like more confirmation I need to do this, because I know she's cool and I like look up to what she does with her time. And so it's kind of like why I was just like, all right, I need to like actually spend time to do this. Yeah, I think I got really lucky because Eli is not only hardworking, he's very consistent with like just coming to our sessions, or he came to our sessions wanting to work and wanting to learn, which I think is not always the case. And I think maybe now, as I'm talking to other mentors and trying to help them figure out how to like do their pacing in their sessions, I realize that like Eli is someone who will listen and also, also have a lot of great feedback when trying to explain certain things. And so I got really lucky to work with Eli to be someone who's like who has just really is very articulate and has great like communication skills. I can say that because not all of my coworkers who are very successful can do that, and I think knowing that he can, dive into something that's just like completely different from what he does is amazing. I feel like he can do anything in the world, just being himself. I think when we did like our initial mentorship training, I remember like Alex brought up, this is just like anybody can be incarcerated, so this should just be like, this is just like a person. And so I went in with that mindset and kind of treated it as if like you were just like my coworker. And I think maybe if there were like pressure, it was mostly just on myself to make sure that like Eli actually like was able to grasp what I was teaching. And I think so we did like 2 cohorts, and after the first cohort, I realized that like everyone goes at different paces. It's also super easy. I think I'm only able to code because like I just do it every day, and if I took like a month off, I would have to like do a catch up. And so, but whichever like the like scenario is, I thought that no matter what, we were still creating a relationship, and it's probably like more of the like longer lasting like relationships I've had like as an adult, because along with like going to school and like being away from home, wherever that is, and even at work, it's just been, I feel like I've been able to learn a lot from you, and also like trying to like also give you like feedback on like how to get better as like writing code and also understanding like how technology works. That's a loaded question. Let me think about that. I think it's kind of like everything else. Actually, in college, I went into a lecture, a lecture that talked a little bit about this, but I think computer science or technology that we know today is like a very early form of engineering that, could be like building a bridge or like working on like electric circuits. It's just very new, and I think there's still like a lot of there has to be a lot more things that will happen in the world in order for like computer science to go from like, oh, let's just like, you know, make some like cool app on our phone to like something that is going to have like a lot more structure and more integrity to it. I think technology right now, like in like the 21st century, exploits a lot of people, and it's like whether it is actually in like the tech field, like in you know, creating websites, or if it goes to like Amazon as an example, where it's kind of just disrupting and taking over the way that we shop, like virtually or in person. And yeah, I think it's just gonna get worse. But I have hope that there are a lot of people out there who are like, who recognize this and willing to change it. And it starts from something like Emergent Works. And I think there are also a lot of people with power who are kind of just waiting for, I mean, I kind of like every other like social impact that has happened. You know, there's always like a bunch of people who are just bystanders right now waiting for some kind of grassroots movement to really like go for it, and then they kind of come and scoop and take all the credit for it. But I think somehow this will happen with technology now. Maybe in like a few decades, who knows? Who knows if we'll still be alive? But it's definitely like really bad right now. Oh man. Diversity and productivity. I mean, it's a lot. I think it's just like if you, I mean, there's a lot of technology that's being built and also like marketed towards like people who are from like either poor socioeconomic backgrounds, or just like basically a bunch of like white people building tools for everyone to use. And that is the reason why we need diversity in our either in our tech field, or at least like more inclusion and understanding of how we can you know, just like we can't continue excluding people as well as like ideas. And like I don't really know. It's also really frustrating to be someone who has had to like assimilate into like the tech world, just knowing that like just even like women are just a really small minority in like tech groups. So it's a lot of work, and I've been constantly trying to think of like what's the best solution for it. But yeah, I also think that it's hard for a lot of people with power to recognize like diversity as a really big issue, because I think a lot of times they focus on like the value that, or like the monetary value they bring, and like they need that instant like gratification or instant like profit to really put value on it. And unless you are someone who comes from like a background like that is not like represented in tech, like you wouldn't understand. And that's a really hard problem. Yeah. I mean, I think it holds a lot of power, a lot of resources. There's a lot of potential for you to like build a business or build a tool that could really empower other people. But for now, it's, I don't know, because we live in a capitalistic society, I think it's been excluded to keep people who are in power, whether it is like people with money or people who have ownership over like property or even intellectual property, and to keep people who will, you know, actually like say the truth like out of tech. And I think like it's kind of like until either you see like some big company really like going forward with supporting either diversity or speaking out on like the negative side of tech, will, I think, people start to have more discussions around it. And I think like luckily there are, like in New York, there are a lot of people who do care about it, and it happens a lot like internally in companies, at least at my company that has happened before. But yeah, it's really hard. I think as we do like more client projects and hopefully supporting more people to go into either like boot camps or getting jobs, I think that really will like individually change people's lives. And I've seen that happen with people who have gone through like also other like similar programs where they go from just, you know, maybe like a minimum wage job to like making 6 figures a year, and that completely changed the way that they can think about their future, like their family's future as well. And I can say that for other people that I've met who are like people of color, or even people who didn't grow up with you know, like computers or like parents that have just like are business owners, I can say that part of working in tech has been kind of like they're working in tech in order to give their like family a retirement plan. Like it's, for them, it's not just about, you know, getting rich and, you know, buying up nice property in New York. It's a lot about just thinking like, where are my parents gonna go when they are like ready for a retirement, and giving them like the ability to either buy property or giving them more like socioeconomic like power. And it's a very slow process, but I think it works because it's really hard to help just like even one person to get to that level. But I definitely believe in it, and I think we've slowly have seen the process. It's just that maybe for people who work in like more corporate worlds, because they think like by quarterly or by data, it's really hard to capture that unless you like actually talk to people and their individual stories. I think within maybe like the next 5 years, I really like the mentorship program, because it is like, I think without it, like my experience of working and mentoring like wouldn't exist. And hopefully we can get like either like more support from other like nonprofits or companies, but it is also trying to find people who are willing to commit to like the like 5-year plan or 10-year plan of EW, because like people can come and go, and that happens a lot with, I think, a lot of other like programs as well. And so it's important to also like, as things start to like ramp up more, like you really start to see like who is like willing to really commit. And I think we're just going through that process right now, which is really exciting. Yeah. I think my plan right now is to continue working towards like becoming a better programmer, and ultimately just like continue working on like solving problems within like whatever I do. But I hope I'll be able to stick around with EW. Like I'm still gonna be in New York, and so hopefully growing that. And yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I'm still like trying to figure out my life, so whatever it takes me. I think I'm hoping that with the right like people in my life and with the right influence as well, I will just continue to help. I definitely want to be more involved and stay involved with trying to help either like the community here or I guess we've expanded a lot to like the West Coast, and so doing that would be like really awesome. But yeah, I don't want to like stay put and just think that everything is okay, because I think there's always a lot to work on, and of course like I don't know, I sometimes like think I'm in like a TV show, and so I'm like waiting for all the new characters to be introduced and then get to meet them, and it's kind of like who's gonna leave and who's, yeah, it's just that. I guess like money doesn't buy you happiness as much as people think, and I think some things can be super lucrative, whether it's like it's like a deal, or it's like a VC trying to like support like your startup, and I think for individuals it's like oh, I'm gonna go with this plan because I know that I'll be set in like the long run. Like maybe you can retire early, and I think no matter what, like it's important to be conscious of like the footprint you leave, regardless of like whether or not you think it's good or bad. But also, I think a lot of people are driven by like exploiting people within like their industry, or trying to like one up another person, and that's not going to work in the long run, because there's just like people are just going to continue like staying poor, and also the people who, you know, have had like a long run in running companies and staying above the high water will continue being there, and it's just not great for anyone. I think, yeah, it's really hard to come up with one message, but inclusion is very important, and it's going to affect everyone, like regardless of what you think. My name is Ashley Chen. I'm a former mentor and a proud member of the Emergent Works family, and I believe excellence in code can come from anyone.